Drum roll going. Hey, the legend is with us. He's with us. And we got Rod Beard joining us again, man. Hey, beat writer supreme. Yep. You guys already know, Detroit news legend. Hey, and he's also moving on up in the sports writing world as well. How you doing, Rod?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm feeling good.
Bro, listen, we have to make sure. We got to make sure that we get like some type of rise out of him on one of these episodes with our
never.
He said never.
We'll find what makes him tick. We got to find out.
Look, we got to. We're gonna find out. But how's everybody doing? We had like a really, really, really good weekend with all this cold that's going on. I swear I saw a few snowflakes out there this morning. This weekend felt like what, Miami?
Yeah, for us, yeah.
For us, it was 80, sunny. You know, my family and I, we got out to South Bend. We got out to St. Joseph's as well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I know Rod and I, we talked about it before. You know about St. Joseph's, Silver Beach?
No.
Hey, it's beautiful.
Never been.
Beautiful. The way the sun hits the lake, it just looks almost like silver. I love it. I love it. But it was beautiful. We got out there. The water was too cold, way too cold.
Yeah, you can't mess around with the water. Not yet.
No, yeah, not this time of year. You can't.
No, but everybody was out there like they were ready to get in, though. So, hey, it made it festive. It made it cool. Got to get away for a little bit. We had to take advantage of the sun. So, it was nice. But I wanted to figure out, man, what did you guys do? Because this is like a heat wave, man.
Yeah, I had to get outside, man. I had to. Played some basketball, got outside. This whole winter, I found myself just sitting inside, minding my own business. But yeah, I like to get out. I sit inside all winter, get out, play some basketball, go walk around, go for a walk. I mean, that's pretty much it. And then it rained for a little bit, so it kind of shied me away. But damper. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Hey,
I did.
Dope. Rob, man, what did you get into?
No, I cheated. I had to go down to Knoxville for a few days, so it was mid 80s, low 80s there. So it was about the same, but still, I wasn't able to be here to enjoy the bountiful weather that you guys had.
Hey,
you didn't miss much, Rod.
Yeah, it was awesome. Though. I'll take it right now. I definitely will take it right now. So yeah. I know we got some warmer weather on the way, but wanted to start off with that, just see how everybody was doing, see how the weekend was, and I want to get into something here. We like to try and talk about some of the things that we may be good at, some hidden talents or some things we want to improve at. Just start with some personal stuff at the beginning of the show. We all are familiar with Calvin Johnson's stint on Dancing with the Stars, right? Mm-hmm. Did any of us know that he even had that skill or that talent? I didn't. When they announced it, I was like, what?
Well, hold up. These guys, that's what I'm saying. People look at athletes and they're like, well, they're athletes. But, like, Calvin, I feel like you never know. A lot of these guys can dance. Like, people got different talents. Like, Calvin was out there at 6'5". He was still moving and shaking. So
yeah, I was like, man, this is amazing. Look at this guy here. It made sense. It makes the, what happens on the field look even that much more believable because he was graceful.
Yeah.
He was graceful, man. It translated. I think it speaks to his work ethic. If he couldn't dance before.
Didn't Iman Shumpert win?
He did.
Didn't he win the Dancing with the Stars? So these guys, man, athletes, they can dance.
Yeah, that's a great point. But I wanted to ask you all, do any of you all dance? And I don't mean club dancing. I mean like ballroom.
I want to get Rod. Rod, you're shaking your head.
I see.
not the kid. Not the kid. The kid does not get down like that. Not at all.
Yeah, for me, it depends on how much alcohol is in my system, number one. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a dancer. If I'm out and you're, there's a crowd and you can kind of blend in, maybe you can copy some people's dance moves. But if I'm on the spot and you're like, hey, you got to do something, I'm not your guy. Look, I'm not your guy, pal.
I'm like you guys. And my wife, though, no, she throws down. She gets down, man. And it's embarrassing because we go to like friends and family's weddings. And I'm just like, I'm still eating, you can go enjoy yourself. And I'm just sitting there like, goodness gracious. And I have to get up, obviously she's looking good. It's a wedding. And got to go over there and dance with her. And I look like I seriously got 2 left feet. Like, seriously, man. Like, I've never, ever, ever tried to dance in my life. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there like, you know what? I'm just going to swing from side to side. Just got to do this.
It never fails, the swing from side to side. That's the reliable move,
right?
That's the way to go.
Hey, it's the prom move?
Yeah, the prom move.
But would you guys go take dancing classes if your girls or friends or somebody put you up to it?
No.
You wouldn't do it still? Come on, Rod.
See, Rod, I kind of feel Rod on this as well. Like, for me, like, if I go take a dancing class, number one, I know I'm bad, so I'm going in there probably the worst student in the class. But number two, like, I don't want it to be a thing I have to go learn. Like, I am what I am, right? Whatever moves I got in the arsenal, I'm keeping them.
Well, we're all athletes, right?
Well,
you said it.
Okay, yeah, true.
Right?
Okay.
Right? We're all athletes, right? I would think that the competitive spirit, that competitive nature would kick in. The athletic ability, the agility, the gracefulness would kick in. And we would start to see, like, nah, that guy over there is not going to beat me. He's not going to be better than me, man. Like, Rod, what's your take, man? What's going on?
There is no competition, though. Like, what are you doing it for? Who are you? You're doing it to impress your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, but you're not. There's no competition. Like, I still play tennis because I'm fighting against myself and we're keeping score. There is no keeping score in trying to take dance classes. It's like, I got better stuff to do. I'm not.
I have better stuff to do.
I'm not trying to impress anybody.
I feel like that conversation about dancing, if you're asking somebody, like, would you take dance classes? It's like asking me, would I go out and take a golf, take a tutor with golf? For me, I personally don't see myself getting good at golf, so I wouldn't go train for it. It's like dancing. Like, I mean, what's the ceiling with dancing for me? Like, I can come out the best dancer on the whole entire city, but what does that do for me?
So you just show up and perform. So when it's time to dance, hey, look.
Everyone's looking at you. Like, man, look at that guy. He can dance, man.
Hey, so when you're at the weddings, it's just, hey, let me put one back and I'm on the floor.
Right, but what's the win in learning how to dance? Like, I would do it for my wife if she said we want to do ballroom lessons, and because she wants to dance,
right? I
would do it for that, but I wouldn't do it for I'm better than this guy. That's no competition, and maybe I'm just at such an age, and in 20 years in being married, it's not a thing for me to try to do that for anybody else except for my wife, if that's what she said she wanted.
Hey, I feel that. And you know what? It's changed. It really has in a lot of different facets, man. There used to be times as it relates to competitive talk and nature and all of that with video games, man. It mattered. It used to matter, man. Yeah. Especially in college, yo. Like bets, all that type. Not bets. We didn't bet in college. What would you call it? Wagers?
Yeah, wagers. Friendly wagers.
Friendly wagers. Games of chance that also had a reward if you won. We'll call it that. You know, we would get really, really, really hype about Halo, Call of Duty, all of that type of stuff. But I don't know, man. As I've gotten older, I just play it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
I just play it for the fun of it. That competitive nature, it just, look, if you're talking about strapping up, lacing up, and getting out on a court, hey, let's go. Yeah. You're not beating me. You're not. But if we're talking about dancing, I don't know, man. I saw Iman Shumpert. I saw Calvin Johnson. Yeah. Dog, they really look like, yo, these guys they're not beating me. No. I don't know.
But see, here's the difference too, is they're incentivized that they're on TV and they've got a rep or they're getting paid to be on the show, an appearance fee or whatever. So there's something there. So I can see it for them. But just for us, and we're going to a wedding and we got to show out and be that. I mean, I've reached such an age where that just doesn't matter for me anymore. Like, it might have, I don't know, when I was in my 20s, maybe it would have mattered a little bit more. Not anymore.
I feel you. All right, so, Legend, hear me out here. Dancing with the Stars.
Oh.
Detroit Media Edition. If you get asked and there's incentive, would you do it?
No.
No.
That's your answer right there.
Look, one, we got to find a way to make this happen. Two, we got to make sure that the official invite goes out to Rod.
Oh my God.
Why would I care? Like, okay, you dance better than me, and what? Show him what he's won. Nothing.
Watch him be good at it though.
Rod goes up. It's
watch him be like really good at it.
Hey, I mean, I think Rod would be the underdog, but I think he could turn some heads. I think he would turn some heads.
I think so. Yo, look. With this talk of versatility, competitiveness, and all of that, you know, it brings me, as we get into some Pistons talk, to Saddiq Bey. You know, and I wanted to talk about this because he's shown a little bit more this year, similar to Calvin with the dancing, but on the basketball court, something that Rod, he cares tremendously more about than dancing. He's shown to be much more versatile. And I wanted to ask you all, what is his best position, and what does that mean for the Pistons moving forward? You know, and I'm going to throw it to you first, Jeff. What is Saddiq Bey's best position out of all the things we've seen, including Coach Casey making mention to increasing or improving his opportunities to run the pick and roll?
Right. I think, well, you had the discussion earlier this year, a lot of fans saying, is he a two guard? And I would say this, if he can, improve on his ball handling and he can, like you said, run the pick and roll, then of course, I mean, he's got the size, he can defend those guys. So of course he can play the two guard. I see him still as a three. I don't think, I mean, I know there's comparisons out there you can make to, Jaylen Brown and things like that. And Jaylen can play both positions. But again, Jaylen is an incredibly better ball handler. So I think that's the main thing with Saddiq is just being able to create offense without, because, I mean, you saw Saddiq when Cade was out, he had 50. So he can do it. I think he just has to do it more consistently. And I think the big thing with Saddiq is consistency. So I'm excited, man. I mean, he's going to add more to his game like Jaylen Brown did as years went on. So right. I'm not going to say he's stuck at a three, but I think right now with his skill set, I think it ultimately fits him to play the three, especially how today's NBA is. You can go small ball, put him at whatever position. So I don't mind it, but I think he's got to get better in a couple different areas to really play consistently at the two guard position, no doubt.
Yeah. I believe the best prospects for the Pistons moving forward, as it relates to what does that mean for the Pistons, is to have him at the three or a small ball four. I've been intrigued with Saddiq Bey at the four, but I just don't know what that means for them long term because I know they have other players that they can plug at those positions and be able to make better use of the players they have on their roster. So, yeah, I at a three spot, I believe that's the most comfortable. But I want to see him moonlight a little bit more at the two, at the four. But I want to see more point forward. I want to see Saddiq Bey play that role that we've seen Jeremy Grant and Blake Griffin play. Not obviously starting off the gate, but I want to see spurts of it because he's shown he's capable of it. You mentioned the 51-point game. He's shown he's capable of it. And there are other high-scoring games that he's had. And the consistency sometimes, that's the thing that I think is holding back a lot of our players.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or not holding them back, but the thing that they have to be able to master.
Yeah.
The consistency. Rod, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think he's definitely not a two. I can't see him guarding smaller, quicker players. He's athletic. He's sort of athletic, but he can't stick with most of the two guards in the league. And it's the old coaching thing. You are what you can defend. And so you'd have to find a small percentage of two guards in the league that he can really stay with and defend. So I think it's really a three or a four. He can be your combo forward guy. And with that ball handling and his ability in the pick and roll, I think it naturally goes to a three. And I asked Dwayne Casey this toward the end of the season, like, have you guys crunched the numbers to see whether he's better suited at three or at four? And he didn't tell me which one, but he said, yeah, we've seen the numbers and he is better at one. My guess is that it's four. The numbers probably say he's better at the four, but again, you gotta sift through and get a little bit deeper in the weeds to figure it out. But I like what he can do as a small ball four, and you can flip him and Jeremy Grant to do either one. It doesn't really matter. Maybe Jeremy's a little bit more rangy and can help defensively with some stuff. But yeah, I think Saddiq can be a three or a four, whichever you need him to be.
Yo, that brings up a very, very, very interesting point when you talk about that, because he did say, just like Killian and Cade are interchangeable, those guard positions, he also said that they want Jeremy Grant and Saddiq Bey to be interchangeable, to be no difference. And when you talk about that, I think that does raise the value of Jeremy Grant on this team just a little bit more, especially knowing that his cap is about $27-28 million a year with the extension. I believe that that's a steal for Jeremy Grant in terms of where I believe he's going, and the ability to be able to switch those matchups, switch those positions between Saddiq Bey and Jeremy Grant. Depending on the matchups, I believe that offers a lot. I think that offers a lot, especially to a coach like Casey. People talk at times about his ability to, on the fly, make adjustments. Well, when you have multiple players that can play multiple positions and the same ones, yeah, it gives you a lot. I don't think people are looking at the fact that he hasn't had these tools in Detroit yet. Now that he's getting them, Saddiq Bey becomes this player that I think we need to start looking at a little bit more. I know that they usually reserve these unicorn labels for, we talked about this with Cade, for players that are above 7 feet and can do multiple things. But if Saddiq Bey can improve on that ball handling and on his defense both ways, because this is about what you do on both ends of the court, I believe we have to start looking at Saddiq Bey in that Jaylen Brown territory. I'm hoping he can make that leap, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit later in our chase down. But I like that ability to be able to switch them. And yeah, what does Saddiq Bey at the 4 look like? What does Saddiq Bey, kind of long term at the 4 look like? What do the Pistons look like? Because I know some people are looking at Isaiah Stewart potentially at the 5 or the 4. Mm-hmm. We're also talking about potentially taking a draft pick that could play the 5 or the 4, or maybe a 3 in a pinch.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, it's going to look good. Number one, because he's going to pull these power forwards out. I mean, his shooting ability, I think, would make that lineup even more scary. I mean, talk about the Warriors and their death lineup. If Saddiq can get better, and especially now in today's game, like it's a positionless essentially game. Like you need guys all 5 positions that can do multiple things. And if you got Saddiq that can play 3 or 4, and he can do multiple things, and maybe he does get better defensively, he can guard multiple positions. I mean, that's going to cause mismatches. I mean, especially on the offensive side, maybe defensively, he doesn't have the size, but still offensively, I mean, you're going to ask these power forwards, especially now, I mean, depending on who you match up against, to come out and guard Saddiq Bey. And if he gets better with his ball handling, I mean, he starts creating his own shot. It's going to be scary.
Yeah.
And here's something else to think about is Saddiq's a better rebounder than Jeremy from what we've seen so far. He's had a number of double-digit rebound games. Jeremy hasn't had quite as many. Just for what he does, you need him floating around on the perimeter and guarding guys differently. But for Saddiq, he can stay in the paint and do some damage for you and get on those boards. So it doesn't matter whether you call it 3 or 4, but just from what we've seen, Saddiq is probably a better rebounder.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great point. Looking to put these players in their best positions, looking at the numbers. You hear Casey talking about it. I'm glad you made mention of that. A lot of times people are wondering, what are the Pistons doing? Is Casey and his staff caught up to what you would consider modern era basketball as it relates to analysis, statistics, and so forth? To make sure that you just have that as another tool to assist in how you are going to rate your players, how you're going to put them in their best spots, how you're going to know what you do and don't have.
Right.
And with a player like Sekou, I just believe it was something like, just side note, more about confidence, more about learning the game. We talked about that before, but I digress on Sekou. What a case. What a case. But that's comforting. That's comforting. Those are words that you're going to continue to hear me use with Casey and with Troy Weaver, because they look like people who know what they're doing, but people who aren't afraid to continue to learn. Continue to surround themselves with the right people, with the right staff, with the right personnel, with the right players that are going to speak their language, know what they're doing, but they're also going to continue to improve. So to know that Casey is using the analytics, numbers, and such to better his players is a good thing. It's a good thing. Anything else on Saddiq Bey before we move into this case?
No, I think I think he's just he's still developing, and he said he's going to try to calm down in the off season because he's a gym rat. He wants to be in there and work on his game continuously with everything that he thinks he needs to add to it. And it was funny. The first thing that they said in his exit interview was just stay out of the gym, because even last summer he did the USA basketball stuff. So he didn't really have some time off like you would normally have a normal off season. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was the thing. They knew, like, when he came in and he was struggling at the beginning of the season, it was because he had never really rested his body. It was that fatigue and that overusage. So this summer, they're going to take a much better look at him taking some time off, get him back in the gym to do just some maintenance stuff, but not to go and play hard like he had been playing all of last summer.
It's a great point. Remember, we talked about that with Cade Cunningham as well. We said, if he sees any type of dip next year to be in the beginning of the season because of the way that these guys work, they work hard, they work tough. Mm-hmm. That was the one thing Blake Griffin talked about with Saddiq Bey. He said that guy works. He's a hooper. He's a baller. He loves this. He loves this game. He wants to be great. And if the Pistons are telling him to chill out, that's probably for the better.
Yeah.
He just went and played all 82 games. He's going to be our Iron Man for a long time. He looks like a guy who can take a hit. He's got knocked down. He's fallen on the ground. He's gotten up, and he's just continued to play tough. Now we just got to make sure that we keep him healthy. I want to hopefully see. I know they're not going to tell him not to play if he wants to play, but if they can find ways to best manage those minutes and best manage how much he's getting hit, because if he's going to play the 4, he might be getting hit a little bit more. I'm hoping that that's something that is paid close attention to, because we need Saddiq Bey consistent, to build
durable.
upon. Yeah. To build upon what we stated before, we talked about how important and how just valuable it would be if Saddiq Bey was a perennial all-star. But I know that he can't do that if he's getting hit, and having heavy responsibilities that cause him, I don't know, a little bit more trouble than it's worth. But, what about you?
I mean, I think most of it is, and Rod mentioned it, he's getting better. I think he's still navigating and finding his way. Obviously, last off season, he had a lot going on into the regular season. So just going forward with Saddiq, I think just learning how to approach the off season and then coming in and obviously you saw the stretch, the end of season, Saddiq looked great. So, I mean, listen, I think a lot of it's just growing. It's hard to really say what his ceiling is because there's so much more he can add to his game. Like Jaylen Brown did at the time. I didn't think Jaylen Brown would be a 25-point scorer eventually. I mean, you just don't see these things. So with Saddiq Bey, I think what has him right now is his value and his shooting ability. So if he can just work off of that, a lot of guys had to work on their shot. They have everything else. He has the toolbox, at least in his jump shot. So just going out and working on his game, I think is going to do wonders. And your point about him being a big part of where the Pistons are in the future is key because depending on what Saddiq Bey looks like, it does push back a little bit on how much talent you need to go acquire if you have an all-star already. So I'm excited to see his development. I think this year is going to be even a bigger step for him, no doubt.
You know what? In the place, this is a question that just popped up. I'm going to ask you guys. I'm going to answer first. Where do you want to see him really, really focus and work this summer? Where do you want to see him come back and just, boom, this is what decidedly he's gotten better? For me, it's the intermediate game. I want to see him get super solid in the mid-range. I see how much it continued to help Cade Cunningham as it got a little bit more consistent. And the type of game that Saddiq Bey plays, I believe that it would be tremendous for him. The back down, the fade, the pump fakes, getting to the lane and being able to shoot. I believe that would add so much more versatility to what he will be able to do no matter what position he's playing on the court. But, yeah, that's it. The mid-range, the intermediate game, even his dribble drives. And I know that the handles that they're hopefully working on this summer,
right,
that will play a big part in that. But, yeah, that's it for me.
And you nailed it. I think the intermediate, at least for him, because a lot of the time we talk about inconsistency with Saddiq Bey. I think a lot of that has to do with him coming to games and settling, for shooting jumpers on the outside. So with Saddiq, it's about just expanding his at least his game. And if he can work in the mid-range, take it to, he's got the physical body for it to at least take it in the lane and be more physical. So I think there's a lot more there. Ball handling is important. I mentioned that already. His playmaking ability doesn't really have that, that's not his job, but you'd like to see him get better in different areas. But I think that's really it. In his offense, his jumper's looking a lot better. He kind of shot down in terms of percentages this year, but it's there. So it really has to do with the things you mentioned. Shooting from the mid-range, his ball handling ability. Rod mentioned it. Maybe just staying with smaller guards and getting better on the perimeter. But that's really it, to be honest, that I can think of.
Yep. Is that covered, Rod, or is there something else that you want to see Saddiq Bey work on?
I would like to see him just add some post-up ability to it. And just get guys down on the block. And it's not necessarily so they can finish down there, but he doubled his assist production from his rookie year to this year. So he's a much better passer. And if he can make people double, he'll find that open guy. So I think that's another area where he could just come in and give you some value is being a guy down in the paint who commands some touches, but with those touches finds other guys too.
Yeah. So I guess the player arc here is Jaylen Brown because that's something he's really good at too.
Yeah.
That's something he's really good at. Moving on, I want to get into our CADE zone. Again, for everybody that does not know, we all grew up in the great state of Michigan in this great city of Detroit, rooting for our sports teams, and we never got enough show. We never got enough play on the national media. Whether we won, whether we lost, it just didn't get talked about. And when we did get talked about, it was, oh, man, this one win for the Lions must be so great for the city of Detroit. Now the people are happy. Look, we want to make sure that we're dedicating time to our guys. For us, our LeBron, our Mike, our current Grant Hill, our current Isaiah Thomas, and they didn't get the due that they needed, our guys. It's Cade Cunningham. And we want to make sure that every single podcast, every single recording, that we're dedicating time to him. You want to add anything onto that before we get into it?
Facts.
What about you, Rod? It's needed, man.
No,
look, this is our ticker for Cade.
You hit it.
Yeah.
Hey, as we talk about it, man, there's a lot that happened since our last pod. Scotty Barnes, he won Rookie of the Year. Oh.
Listen, before Rod goes, because I know I want to hear what Rod has to say on this. But where I'll go with it is I'm not going to sit here and say it was a robbery. Listen, it was a tight race. I think even Scotty, Evan, and Cade were all in the consideration. What really ticked me off the most is how many third place votes Cade got. According, because if you look at this race, and for all year, especially down the stretch, it was Evan Mobley. And then Scotty wins it. So obviously the race was a lot closer than we thought. And the fact that Cade, and I get it, and Rod also can understand this. They're giving out votes to all the voters that are qualified. They're in different cities. They're in Phoenix, they're in New Orleans, wherever they are. They're not watching Pistons games. Like that's kind of the reality of it. You see Toronto, you see Cleveland. So if you're talking about it from team and how well your team does, which, let me add, I've never seen before considered. You don't do that. LeBron won Rookie of the Year over Carmelo, not because Carmelo's team was better, but because LeBron was the better overall player. But this race, I'm not mad about it. I'm more mad that more people don't actually take into account how much pressure, being the number 1 overall pick, coming to a city like Detroit that's so eager for success. Toronto and Cleveland had success, a couple years ago. So they're just trying to reap. The Pistons are dying for success. Cade comes in. The amount of double teams he's getting per game, I think the exact number is like 13 point something. He's in the echelon of LeBron, Steph Curry, and even Darius Garland. Evan Mobley's teammate. So that's what frustrates me is people don't take that into account. It's just like your record, and that's it, I guess, because if we're looking at an individual player, Cade wins. But, and if people want to discredit him from, the first 10 games of the season, which I will give you, that's kind of the only argument they have. You can't say he wasn't healthy. There's only a 10, 15 game difference between all these rookies.
And he still averaged, 14, 4, and 3 in that first month. Like, he still was averaging more points per game than a lot of these other rookies. What set me off the most is the month of March. The month of March. If talking about Michael Jordan month?
You can call it MJ month, 23 month.
Yeah.
Cade did something that hasn't been done since MJ as a rookie, and Scotty wins.
Hey,
I just don't. That's where the disconnect is for me, but I'm sure Rod can especially speak to it.
Yeah,
honestly.
No, and I think I started saying this a few weeks ago that I thought it was a done deal that people were going to vote for Mobley because and Cleveland faded a little down the stretch too. If they went in as the 6th seed or something, then it would have been
record
Mobley's
than the
season.
Pistons after the All-Star break.
After the All-Star break, they faded a little bit. So I think people had made up their minds, and then the way the voting works, and I've done the voting too. There's certain categories you pay a little bit more attention to than others, and so with Rookie of the Year, you want a good start to the year so you can kind of validate that initial thought. You say, "Hey, number 1 pick, he's out here averaging 17 points for the entire season." And there is no slow start. There is no dip in the middle. There is just if he had a consistent season all the way through and didn't miss a lot of games, then Cade would have been right in the middle of that discussion. But with them having the 3rd worst record, for most people, that thought is, what did he do to contribute to winning? He didn't make them a better team than they were the previous year because they only had a couple more wins. But you've got to dive deeper into this.
Right, deep dive.
So it's almost like looking at the all defensive team. Do you go and you break down film of every player and say, here, you have a thought in your head about who the best defensive players are. And then when you get your ballot, you vote for those people. And so I think it's partially because people don't pay enough attention. There aren't enough people who pay. I think there are a few who look at it and say, ooh, look at that March that Cade had. But it turned into a war of words. And when we get our ballots and we get people who are starting to lobby, the teams will start sending you data and information for you to look over to consider their guys. The Pistons don't do a ton of that, but they did it a lot more this year than they've done it in previous years because I think they knew the race was going to be close. So I think people had kind of made up their minds and said it's Barnes, and then the people who didn't looked at the standings and said, hey, Toronto's having a better year, so it must be Barnes. Well, maybe it was some of their other guys. They've got Van Vliet. They've got Siakam. They've got a squad around him. Cade didn't have an all-star at all around
still
him.
Couldn't beat Cade.
Yeah, exactly. And head-to-head, and I thought that was something that was interesting. I went and looked at what Cade had done head-to-head against each of the other top rookies. And the numbers are crazy. They won those games because Cade gets up for those games against Scotty Barnes or an Evan Mobley. And his stats were a little bit better. So, I mean, it's all subjective, but I think the voters look at what they want to look at. And I'm not mad about it. I mean, it is what it is. I don't care.
Yeah.
But in a lot of categories, you're going to see that same sort of thing where there might not be a lot of research that goes into it, and guys just pick who they want to pick. It is what it is.
And Rod, I got to ask you too. You saw Herb Jones get that third place vote? What went through your mind? I mean, honestly, like I'm serious. Like what? And I don't want to call my man Kevin P out, but he's sure he does great work. But the fact that you voted for Herb Jones for third place, that tells me you just don't watch. At least Cade.
But how much time are you going to spend watching the Pistons?
Man,
you can turn on some highlights.
Yeah, for the number one pick, you would think, hey, make this some type of priority viewing at least once every 20 games. At the very least. You know, because the reason why I do get upset as more of a fan and as a basketball fan is because Cade Cunningham put in that work. You know, the NBA is supposed to be built on making sure, and you know, I got to make sure that I parse this correctly, because the players, the coaches, personnel within the NBA, they're saying Cade is a real deal.
Right.
They're all saying it. I get it. So the media, I want to be fair to that. They're not watching as much, and you're right. We all have our biases. We have the people that we think are the best at what they do. We have, for better or worse, you know, our preconceived notions on what we think should go into the award. But the reason why I'm upset is because when you look just at the month-by-month averages, this isn't a situation where, you know, Cade was just kind of doing okay. Yeah, the month-by-month averages, this guy went from like 14 to 17 to like then 25. Just like 20. Like it was just, and then consistently. It didn't dip. When Cade got going, he stayed going. Mobley dipped. Scotty Barnes, he was consistent, but he had like a string of games where the man didn't even get above like 10 points or something like that. Yeah. It was, you know, these guys showed that they were more or less supported by the teams that they had around them. Yeah. Not that they're not good. Not that they're not good. I'm not saying that. I would have been fine with any of them. I would have been fine with Jaylen Green. Trust me, I would have been maybe Jalen Suggs, maybe Wagner, definitely. But I don't know, man. I just beyond it being unfair in my eyes, I believe it's disrespectful. I don't think that it's a blatant Detroit versus everybody, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. I don't think that they're going out here saying, "Oh, let's be against Detroit."
Right.
The reason why I think it is Detroit versus everybody is because it is on us. Like you said, there wasn't a lot of information out there. But when we look out at the landscape of teams, there are certain areas like LA where you got a whole bunch of content creators out there doing this stuff for a long time. So their media, their people, their fans, they're putting out the information. They're doing the stat musing for a long time. I remember when this started to take off within what we call Pistons Twitter, then all of a sudden Pistons and Pistons Twitter, even during our down years, started to get a little bit of respect. That's why we are at where we're at right now as it relates to the social media world. I feel like the more and more that we do what we're doing right now, which is the purpose of this CADE Zone, and we put the facts in front of people to the point that our fans, our people, hey, listen, fans of Woodward Pistons, fans of the Pistons, fans of Detroit News, fans of the legend Rod Beard, fans of the Morning Woodward Show, alum legend Jeff Iafredi, fans of Detroit Kool-Aid, look, clip this stuff. Get this out there so people know if they voted against Cade, they made a mistake.
Yeah.
If people felt like this was not the best rookie, they made a mistake. He contributed to winning. You look at those numbers just before All-Star break until the end of the season, their record with Cade Cunningham is just around 500. For this Pistons team, that's what I'm saying. Like that, you can't miss that stuff when you're talking about voting. You know, for Rookie of the Year. You can't when you're talking about the number one pick. When you're talking about, hey, we're just gonna give it to Mobley. We're going to change this narrative and this thing up from best rookie to who got drafted to the best situation, who had the best teammates, who was able to have a slump, and, hey, we're just not going to care because their team went on a winning streak.
Do you think it's because Cade's not as flashy? Like he's more fundamentally sound. Like he plays like a flashy?
Jeff, he dunked on somebody and pointed at him, bro.
He's not flashy?
Got ejected.
Okay. Not not the most flashiest. Like Cade is out there, he's moving at a snail's pace. He's moving at Luka Doncic's pace. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's because if it was because, what would the argument be? I'm trying to think, Rod. Like, what would be a legitimate argument that you could say, you know, besides their team's bad, because that's irrelevant, because that shouldn't matter in the Rookie of the Year race.
The number one reason why is
like, what's a legitimate argument?
The CADE zone wasn't out there yet. You know, putting this factual truth out there. You know, this was out there all season.
It would have to be. You would have to be either the first stretch of games, or he's not. I mean, he's not flash. Like, what's your argument?
I think it's the information. I don't think it's the.
So it's just because the lack thereof.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And I make light of it. I'm joking about it here, but Rob made mention to it. People just didn't know. They're never going to watch all the Pistons games because they have assignments themselves. But if there was a place where they can go and at least get some quick information or see, like holy moly crap, this dude just went on a crazy run. Like, this is historic. These people would then find a way to tie it into their own content and get some hits.
Right.
If they understood the type of player he was. This guy wasn't just going out there just chucking up shots. We saw those players. That's the reason why I say it's a little bit disrespectful. Cade Cunningham is the farthest from a guy who's just trying to go out there and chuck up shots to get his own.
Right.
We saw him go out there for games on games on games on games on games, trying to find players, and then it seemed like somebody told him, hey, Cade, you're the man. Go out there and just play basketball. Go out there and
see, here's the thing, too, is that we see this every day. We're on a game-to-game basis of knowing here's 20, here's 34 against the Nets. They don't have the national exposure. So a lot of these voters for Rookie of the Year and some of the other categories, they might see the Pistons literally 2 or 3 times a year if they're paying attention, because the way the schedule is set up. So you can't – I think that was it that Orlando Pistons game with Saddiq's 51? Was that the only game on that night? I believe it was one of those games where it was the only game on. So you can't kind of trip your way into watching Cade. You have to intentionally sort of say, I'm watching Cade tonight. And because of the number of games that he missed, because of the injuries, because of COVID, because of everything else, they're just a 23-win team that doesn't excite you. And I think that's kind of what Jeff was saying, is that maybe if he's not flashy enough, but the Pistons aren't flashy enough to grab your eye and make you say, this is appointment viewing and I'm watching this, unless you're a Pistons fan. And of the voters, I'm going to say there aren't very many that are Pistons fans at all. Jalen Rose maybe, but that might be it.
Yeah, you're right, man, because Jalen Green put up similar scoring numbers. I don't think it's a flashy thing because he was very flashy, but I'm starting to wonder if people kind of lumped Cade Cunningham into that same story.
Yep.
You know, flashy guard just a guy who's going out there on a team that's not really that good, can kind of look dysfunctional from the outside, putting up some numbers, and they're not really seeing that actually this was a much different and better team when they got healthy,
right?
When Cade got comfortable. You know, when the game plan changed, when that team meeting came, when the leadership was placed on his shoulders, the team got better. But you're not able to really see that on a national scale, because I don't even know how to credit Jalen Green. I don't even know what his scoring was like because I just didn't watch him. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. I got to be fair to that. And to your point, you know, I believe that as people got more and more into the season, we've seen other writers start to say, you know what? We think he may be the best.
Shout out Terry Foster.
Shout out Terry Foster, man. Hey, we got another legend in here, you know. But yeah, to that point with Jalen Green, I don't even know what to call it, and I didn't know how good Franz was until I actually saw him play against the Pistons, and I was like, whoa, he's actually really good.
Talk about hooping under the radar, like that's a guy right there.
Yep. So I get it. I get it. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do get it.
That's more to the point too. Is Franz Wagner had a pretty good year too, and he just got completely forgotten about. He shot 35% from 3 and averaged 15, 4.5, and how many assists did he have? And 3 assists. So his numbers weren't shabby, but people didn't talk about Franz Wagner being in that conversation or Josh Giddey being in that conversation. And Giddey averaged more assists and more rebounds than Cade did. So I mean, that tells you something, that there is something to say about the record and teams that people are paying attention to. People didn't pay attention to Houston, not the Pistons, not Oklahoma City, and not Orlando. Who did they pay attention to? Those other two, because they were in the playoffs. And that's why you got all this Scotty Barnes love and this Evan Mobley. And Mobley's is is a little bit better deserved, I would say, because he is flashy. He did have blocks. He did dunk on people. But are you looking at stats? Are you looking at the highlights? Or are you really digging into it and finding what these guys did and rewarding the guys who really had the good all-around seasons? Cade's season was better than statistically than all of the rest. So there has to be some other thing going on that made those guys vote for, or the voters vote for who they voted for.
If you got to pull out VORP and BPM,
don't give me that. Don't give me that. I don't know.
If you, man, when StatMuse tweeted that, I'm like, man, y'all are, it's really reaching. I mean, if you're talking about value over replacement player and box score plus minus and, you know, everything else, win shares, and how about who looked better?
That's when you're reaching, because it's, let's go by traditional stats. This dude averaged 17, 5, and 5 as a rookie.
Yeah,
on
that
a team
matters.
And it's not that he scored because there wasn't anybody else to score. You had Saddiq Bey, you had Jeremy Grant, you had other guys who could score. He scored because he could score, and that's just what he did. And he could have averaged 20 or 25 if he was being a ball hog. If he was going like Jaylen Green, he could have averaged 20 or 25 if he wanted to.
Yeah.
But it was a case of he was trying to get his teammates involved and set the foundation for next year and beyond. He wasn't going for Rookie of the Year intentionally. And Saddiq Bey wasn't going for 51. That's going to pay dividends a lot quicker than the award is, I think. So it doesn't matter to me, and I don't think it matters as much to Cade either. But I think he's going to wear that. That's going to burn for him for a while. I think he's going to take it out on the league next year.
That'll benefit us.
I hope so. Definitely. I hope so. And talking about value, talking about these players, talking about what we felt like in the past we had missed in these drafts. Certain players specifically I want to mention: Donovan Mitchell. Hey, Piston fans, this may sting a little bit. Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton, and there are more. We know that there are more, but I want to talk about specifically those three because those could have been franchise defining. Now we have our franchise defining guy, or at least we think so, in Cade Cunningham. And what I wanted to ask you all is this: would you give back Cade to get one of those other missed picks right? Why or why not?
No. I think Cade will be a more impactful player than any of those guys. And that I'm saying that.
I love how confidently and how quickly you just said that.
Because number one, it's a big deal coming from me. Devin Booker's my favorite player in the NBA. So the fact that it was hard for me not to say, give me Devin over Stanley Johnson, and I don't want to play, rewrite history, but I feel like we would have still been bad with Devin and we could have had a chance to get. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Yeah. But give me Cade. His impact, even even Devin Booker, he's a fantastic scorer, but we don't know what Cade can get to. He could be a 25-point-a-game guy. Like he said last time, he might not be your leading scorer, but I think the impact he has on both sides of the ball, especially too, he can get better as a defender. That'll be more value than any of those guys. And Donovan Mitchell's great. I can't believe that, he wasn't the selection, but to where we are now, it's all worked out. I think we got the best player in you talk about the impact since Isaiah Thomas. Yeah. Like that, you think Devin Booker would be in that impact since, Isaiah Thomas? I think Cade's kind of 1-1 in that instance. Yeah. Or 1-2.
Yeah, look, man, what won it over for me for Cade over Devin Booker, because that's what it came down to, was the fact that I believe Cade is the CP3 to the mix. I don't believe that Cade is the Devin Booker. I thought that their player comparisons were very similar. But I believe that as Cade develops, we're going to see this guy in terms of that leadership, that command that we see guys like LeBron James have on the court. It's hard for me to say that because I am not a LeBron James fan. I am a LeBron James respecter, though. And what I see out of Cade Cunningham on the court is just an intangible that we've talked about many times. It's the reason why you have to grab that guy when you do, regardless of what you think about the talent, because that is the stuff of all NBA. That's the stuff of legends. That's what he's made of.
That's winning right there.
Yeah, that's the fabric of his DNA. I believe he is the straw that stirs the drink more so than the player. I'm thinking now Saddiq Bey needs to be gunning for what we see Devin Booker being.
Yeah, just get buckets.
Yeah, get buckets, man. Go out there and be tough to defend, tough to stop, tough to guard. Hey, hold on. We're going to bring somebody in here real quick. He has to get his hat. But finish it up. We're going to bring in a little special guest real quick. We're going to bring him in.
Oh, no. Yeah, Rod, let me get your thoughts on it.
On the Cade versus Booker or Mitchell?
Yeah. Like, would you go back and redo any of those picks?
The only one that I can really No, not giving up Cade, because I think Cade in the midst of having Saddiq and the young core that they have now can be really something special. Mm-hmm. The only one that you really wonder about is Mitchell, because that was a time that they had Jackson, Drummond. I think Tobias would have been there.
Yep.
Forward Tobias or Marcus Morris, or maybe both of those guys. So adding what Mitchell brings, that could have been a much better playoff team at that point, because some of the pieces were there. And I mean, if they get Blake in the same kind of role, I would be interested to see what that looks like. But I wouldn't give up Cade to see it. I'm just saying there is some intrigue. The Devin Booker, you just don't know how that would have turned out, because they didn't have the roster to really make that into something at the time. He just would have been a piece that had to grow with that roster. But they had a lot more pieces in place, and they were closer at the time when they didn't pick Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question, I know you just walked in here, Izzy, but I was asking Rod, if you could redo, taking, Stanley Johnson over Devin Booker, taking Kennard over Donovan Mitchell, but you have to get rid of Cade, would you do it?
No.
Why not?
I've expressed this before in the past, is that I feel like ultimately, you take talent away, NBA's a size game. With Cade, we have one of the bigger guards in the league.
Yeah.
He's obviously more like a cerebral player too, so he gets guys the balls in their spots. I say it all the time. I sound like redundant saying it, but we all know at this point that's how he plays the game of basketball. He's a smart basketball player. I think you add that in with him having the size advantage at the guard position. I think that's the type of stuff that leads you to championships in the long run.
Yeah, his playmaking ability alone compared to those guys can alter your franchise. He can make guys better and get his own. And I don't think, I love Donovan, I love Devin, but I think that's what separates Cade, is his impact. Definitely.
Yeah, and you look at, Donovan's probably on his way out of the playoffs in this first round. Devin really didn't. I like Devin a lot. He's from here. I hope he ends up here at some point in the future. But until a playmaker like Chris Paul came along, he wasn't really doing much in this league other than putting up big numbers and scoring.
Right.
Can I ask you something, Rod?
Absolutely.
Celebrity question. Easy drops in for the.
Did you guys see that on the Bill Simmons podcast proposed a trade where Zion Williamson ends up in Detroit?
Rod, we got to get your opinion on that.
Zion Williamson ends up in Detroit in exchange for this year's first-round pick, Saddiq Bey, and Killian Hayes, I believe was the trade. Is that no?
That's all we needed, Rod. I do it.
Go ahead and tell people why.
What are we doing? What are we talking about? For Zion, we don't even know what he has or what he can do. It's almost like talking about Ben Simmons. Is it sort of what is he going to add? What does he bring?
Right.
And he hasn't played in so long. You're giving me hypotheticals, and we're talking about Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker. We know what they are. We don't know what Zion is and how he fits and if he's going to be healthy.
Very true.
I think he's probably missed more games that he's played, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a big question mark. And it was a similar thing with Joel Embiid, where he was hurt for a lot of the early part of his career. I've never been a big Zion guy at all. I don't know what position he actually is, and I just don't know if he can stay healthy. And if you're telling me I've got to give up Saddiq and a top 5 pick, no thanks. And you've got to pay him at some point when his rookie deal is up. I'm good with where I am, and I got some cost certainty with these young guys. I'll stick with that.
Yeah, and that's what shies me away too. Is not only are you going to have to pay him soon, but if I have to question if a player loves basketball, that shies me away. If I have to question your hunger to get better and to be here, be available.
Yeah.
This year has taught me a lot about Zion, and I don't think I'm not saying he's not injured. I'm sure his foot's been bothering him, but you just don't see that drive in Zion. And he's been great physically. I think he's probably the most physical gifted guy, one of the guys I've ever seen in my entire watching basketball.
Yeah.
But the other things do scare me, especially when you're going to have to pay him. It's tough for me. I would say no as well. If you have to trade Saddiq, would they say this year's first-round pick? I'll take Jabari Smith and keep Saddiq and keep those guys.
Right, and keep it and completely keep it moving. And the thing with sort of bigger guys is it's just like a 7'2" guy. If they have foot injuries, that is a huge concern.
Yes.
You can tell me it's a knee injury or something else. I'm not as worried about that. But a big guy and feet, that scares me away too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I hate questioning guys' like love for the game because like they're obviously there for a reason, right? But like with a guy like Zion, you know the weight seems to be like the injury, like giving to the injury issues. You look at LeBron James, a guy who spends $1 million a year and just taking care of his body alone. And that would show like how much his passion for the game there is how much he's really committing to it.
Like Cade came in as a vegan. Like some guys are just different. Like they take care of their bodies really early.
Cade's already working right now in the off season. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's love right there for the game of basketball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're watching the playoffs, not tweeting about it. You just Detroit versus everybody back in the gym.
You got your hat. We got your special hat too.
Oh,
what's up? What happened? No.
Here we go.
Oh no.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, Rod. Definitely got to talk about it.
Did you see you saw the text? We got to talk about that just real quick. This is about the hijack this stuff. Hey, no.
My guy.
No, shout out
Easy. Heavyweights.
Definitely. Heavyweights. Woodward Heavyweights. Shout out to the thing. Hey, love you, bro. Thank you. Yeah, he does a lot for the network. He does a lot. I'm glad he was able to just kind of stop in real quick. But Marvin Bagley, I see our friend James Edwards III, who joined from Half Court. Yesterday? 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. He just put out that per sources, the Pistons want to sign Bagley to a multi-year deal. They don't just want him locked up for a season. A 3-year deal is what Detroit would like to get done. He's saying it would look something like 3 years, 21 to 24 million.
That's right on the money for me.
Man.
Yeah.
Yo.
Oh, Rod, hold up.
Okay. That's what, about 7 to 8 mil a year?
What you think, Rod?
You got to tell us, man.
I think you got to open up the wallet a little bit more because of this free agent class, and there aren't a lot of options there.
Yeah.
I think you might have to pay somewhere in the 10 to 12 range for Bagley because of what he's shown. Yeah. That if the Pistons had kind of not used him in the post and not shown that he can be effective there, I think that's going to lead other teams to sniff around. And as a restricted free agent, because who else are they giving money to? Who else is out there that makes you a big that makes you say, yeah, you got Ayton that you can throw money at, but what's the next guy after that you feel like this is somebody, a young guy that teams would want to build around? It's Bagley.
Right.
I think somebody's going to throw 10 to 12 at him, and the Pistons will have to match that. I think my limit for him would be about 15. Mm-hmm. And I would have to think long and hard about it. But he's shown that he can be a fit. If you can get him for 7 or 8, it is highway robbery. And more power to Troy Weaver if you can do it. But I think another team is going to come in and ask and put somewhere around 10 or 12 on the table and make them really play chicken on whether they want to use a lot of their cap space on Bagley. And they should. Yep. I would say they should.
Yeah.
But 7 or 8 is if you can get that number, hey, knock yourself out. You have made a wonderful deal for Bagley. Yeah.
It's saying here that, like you said, it's possible that Bagley has other fans in free agency, especially now that other teams have gotten a brief glance at what he looks away from Sacramento. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to be an interesting thing. I was wondering what was going to go on with Marvin Bagley, what they were looking at, something short-term, or if they were looking at him as a part of this core, or if hey, we got our look. We'll see what free agency presents. But to know that they are intent on bringing him back.
Long-term.
3
years, that's good.
Oh, yeah. It's 3. 3 is about right. I think for the term, and you can just see, but he's still young. He's 23, I believe.
Yeah.
He's been in league
and
that
3
works
years.
For his side. You can get a nice contract where you can get him some money right now, and then in 3 years when he's 26, you can get him another bigger contract if this works out well. So I think that number and that number of years works out for both.
I think I guessed when we were first having this discussion, like I don't know how long ago it was, I said 3 for 30. So, like, if we can get him for 10, like Rod said, I think that's perfect.
Yeah,
like, if you could get him for, that's still a deal for a guy who's going to give you 15 points, whether he's starting or not. I mean, there's going to be a market for him. Yeah. I think the point Rod made about this free agency class is a great point, because I've been talking about how underwhelming it is, and I didn't even think of Marvin Bagley hitting the market and what teams are going to be able to throw at him. So, just thank God the Pistons are going to be able to match it, but we'll see what his market looks like.
Yeah, and the thing is, there aren't a lot of teams. Who is it? Orlando, Indiana. the Pistons, and who's the fourth team that has money? I can't remember. Atlanta?
Atlanta, I thought had some money.
Atlanta, Orlando, the Pistons, and Indiana, I think, are the four that have money that can throw it around.
Yeah,
Atlanta might be
for sure.
Atlanta might do some crazy stuff and just kind of throw their roster up in the air and see where stuff lands. Mm-hmm. So I think you've got to look at who's got space and then who might just try to do some other stuff. Because these teams that don't do well in the playoffs, what are the Nets doing in free agency? We saw the Hawks leave early. What are they doing? Because they got a roster. They've got Trae Young for only a certain number of years, and they want to make sure that they're doing right by him. There's some teams that don't do well in the playoffs this year that are going to have to do some desperate things if they think they're going to try to be better and be ready for next year. So free agency there aren't a lot of good players out there. So you might see some teams make some desperation moves or some desperation trades, if not signings in free agency, to try to get better quickly. I think this is going to be a really surprising year in free agency, and some weird things are going to happen that we don't expect right now.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if, I know they can go over the cap to sign Jaylen Brunson if they sign their players first, but I don't see the Pistons doing that. I don't think that would be, me personally, smart or wise, but I'm wondering if there's a number that they can run Marvin Bagley's contract up to that takes him out of the Brunson race altogether. But I am encouraged to hear that they're, looking to bring him back.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it is off the bench. I think the more talent you can have, the better. If he's coming off the bench, that means that they have somebody even more formidable starting. And this team is going to look really, really good. With Killian Hayes off the bench, Marvin Bagley, and potentially others. I know that Hami has the team option, $5.2 million.
If I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if they're going to, if he's trade bait or if they're bringing him back. I know he's
for 5.2. I think you bring him back.
Bring him on
for
back.
5.2. I think that's reasonable enough to bring him back.
Wait, and I want to ask Rod real quick too. Like, if you re-sign Marvin and you go out and you draft a Jabari or whoever, and what do you tell Marvin when you re-sign him? Is it like, does he know his role already, or is he going into the season and then he'll know if Jabari's going to start right away, whoever it is? I'm just saying Paulo, whoever it is, or would it be flip-flop? Maybe Marvin starts and the rookies kind of inclimated into the starting lineup. Like, how would that work if you sign Marvin?
I think you try to figure it out. I said this before. I think everything hinges on what you do with Jeremy, and you decide whether you're keeping him or trading him, because that opens up that 3-4 spot for you can play with Marvin and Isaiah and Saddiq, or you can I don't know if you draft Jabari, does Jabari come in immediately and start? Maybe, but again, it depends on what the depth is that you have. But Bagley has shown with that second unit that he can be very, very effective against second line guys. And I think you give him that opportunity, but it just depends on who you draft and how free agency goes, and if you're able to trade. Because again, I think you throw a bag of money at DeAndre Ayton and you make Phoenix blink and make them make a decision on that. And if that doesn't work, then you can go back to your plan Bs and everything else that you want to do.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But having that defensive stopper and that traditional center there who can do some things changes the dynamic. And they may just say, you know what, Bagley can be that guy for us and we don't even care about Ayton. But at least now with Bagley as a restricted free agent, you can have that option to see, hey, does Phoenix win this championship? And then they decide we're not going to put any more money into it and we're done with this group and we can move on to do something else. And we don't need to sign Ayton at that point. Or if they lose early, because they're only up 3-2 in the first round. If they lose in the first round, they might say we need to run this back, or they could just say, you know what, this combination of things didn't work. We need a cheaper answer to try to make it all work out for us.
Right.
Yep. And I hope the Pistons
let me give you this. Let me give you this.
Yeah.
The Pistons re-signed Bagley. The Suns re-signed Ayton. Would you trade Ayton for Bagley? There's obviously going to be some more pieces in there, but would you do a trade with something like that? Just think about that.
I would be okay with that.
I want Ayton, man.
You get a starting center in this league who has experience like Ayton. I mean, my God.
Yeah, and for me, it's about maximizing the window for Cade Cunningham.
Absolutely.
I don't think he wants to be restoring too much longer. I think he wants this thing to be restored. He wants to get to playing winning basketball. He wants to make sure that the eyes are on him. If this stings right now, he doesn't want to go another season where people aren't paying attention. He doesn't want to go another season where fans aren't in seats. And if we believe that Cade Cunningham and this team is worth it, fans, get in the seats, man. Mm-hmm. Get in the seats. Get there, build this back up to what it used to be. There wasn't a sales pitch in the past. What'd you say?
It hurts Cade to not be winning. You know who it hurts more than Cade? It hurts Saddiq. And he said it. He said, I thought we were going to be a playoff team last year. So it's biting at him and eating at him. Yep. I would even say more than Cade. And we know how it hurts Cade. Saddiq is that dude's about winning, period.
Villanova product, man.
I'm getting excited about
Nova dude.
I like this foundation.
Nova dude.
I like this foundation. We've seen them try to build on the fly. We've seen them try to win. We've seen them try to rebuild on the fly. I'm grateful for the patience and the pace that they're taking us at, but I'm also grateful for the fact that Troy Weaver knows not how to move faster, but how to get more shots, how to get more bullets in the chamber, than to just sit there and say, well, we got 1 first-round pick and 1 second-round pick. Let's hope we do the do. He's out here saying, you know what? Let's rebuild. Let's do this the right way. And what do most teams want? They want a lot of picks. But instead of doing it like Boston, who for years would just compile a bunch of draft picks and then get to the draft and there'll be crappy picks, he kind of strategically and surgically that first year went through and maneuvered and picked. And people were like, whoa, Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown, why are you trading these guys? These guys are the heart and the soul, the defense, the three, the this, the that. And he's just like, you guys have no idea what we're actually trying to do here. Now we're sitting here talking about Saddiq Bey potentially, knowing he has the potential to be a annual, every year all-star type player. I want to see him push to be an all-NBA caliber player, an all-NBA team caliber player out of Saddiq Bey. And I'm glad that you continue to speak that, because we need to make sure all of our guys that need that due are getting it, man. I know they care about it. And if you're sitting here saying that these guys for the last couple years now have felt this way, what happens going into next season when they have a little bit of cap space to spend? Another draft pick or 2 or 3, another sneaky signing by Troy Weaver off the draft white waiver or something. I'm serious. Yeah. Like, what happens next year? What? That's what we keep asking. What's the expectation? I believe at the very least, the play-in. I don't think that these guys are thinking play-in. When I just hear them speak, I think they feel like they should be like Cleveland next year as it relates to, hey, let's battle for a 6th, let's battle for a 5th seed. And me personally, I want to see them in the play-in. But the more and more I hear them speak and the assets that they have and the people we have in place, I'm trying to keep it in check. I'm really trying to keep it in check.
It's hard to call it this early too. Like, obviously, we got to wait for the lottery, got to wait for the NBA draft, got to wait for off season to see where this team is. But Cade, you know what Cade's going to be next year. At least you know what you're going to expect from Cade. So, and Saddiq and all the other guys. I would say a play-in is probably the goal. I think that should be. I don't want to say it's a must. I mean, they pretty much, to us as fans, I think it's about time. You try and creep into that play-in tournament. But the East, like Rod said, a lot of these teams out East have cap space. Like, it's going to be a battle to who's getting better, who's climbing, who's getting better. You have Charlotte who fell out. What are they going to do? He mentioned Atlanta. Yep. So I think, from a Pistons, fan point of view, we're sitting here like optimistic and we love it. But I think that East, man, you've seen the tides change over the years from the West to the East and how better that East has gotten. I think the play-in should be what we strive for, but I don't want anybody to cry come March and we're out of we're again bottom of the damn league. Just depends what they do in the offseason, definitely.
Bro, I'm just over here right now, and I'm gonna get to you, Rod, but I'm just over here right now just thinking about this because you mentioned there's a lot of teams that's gonna have some money. Dog, how savvy a Troy Reaper to get out in front of this thing. And just go get Marvin Bagley. Say, you know what? Heck, dog, I'm just sitting here thinking about that, like restricted free agent.
Right.
I control this.
Yeah.
That's our general manager, folks.
So here's can I say this? I will say this.
Say it.
If you got to ask Rod, it ain't good.
There was somebody that I spoke to, a league source, who said that around earlier in the year when they were asking about Bagley, that the Pistons had asked about Bagley and the Kings wanted Saddiq for Bagley. Oh. And the thought was, I don't know if anybody got hung up on. If you told me if I was asking you about Bagley and the Kings came back and said, they wanted if you give us Saddiq, I might have hung up the phone.
You're hanging that phone.
I might have thrown the phone or hung up the phone, or I might have laughed. And I don't know how that
at
works.
At least a chuckle, man. At least a little one.
And then you give up Trey Lyles and Josh Jackson. That just tells you how Weaver's doing these cats. That it is, if they're asking for that and you end up giving something much less. There you go. That's that.
Yeah. And when we hear him talk in the press conferences, he's just so stoic, man. Like, it fits the persona, man. It just fits. I don't get what happened in that deal. I still I laugh at it. I'm just like, how did that happen? Because the reports were, I remember specifically the Jeremy Grant one. They said, Jeremy Grant's going to have to be traded in a trade, any deal that's going to include Marvin Bagley. When the deal was announced that Marvin Bagley was coming to Detroit, they didn't mention any return players at first. The first report was like, hey, we'll get to that. And then when they mentioned it, I was like, what? What?
Yeah, it's almost comical.
Where's Jeremy Grant at in this? Where is even Hami in this? Where is somebody?
It's like for who?
Yeah, it was just like, for who? Wait, what? Rod, we were just talking about Trey Lyles. You had just come here to the office. We were talking about putting this pod together. We were talking about our fans understanding the benefit of Trey Lyles, at least having a big on the roster that can play the pick and roll game, for whoever's out there on the court with him. Right. We know he didn't get a lot of time with Cade specifically, but we saw how it helped this team. And then it turned into Marvin Bagley. That's what I'm saying.
That's how that stuff works, is that they just know and what the guys that they covet, and it's this low risk. Yeah, and Trey Lyles was a free agency signing. Josh Jackson, free agency signing. So you pick guys and you thought that they would have some incremental improvement, and they turn into a bigger. That's how you play this game as a general manager in this league, is you take some shots on something, you take a risk on something, it pays off for you, and you barter it into something bigger. That's what the good GMs do. That you don't have to come out of ridiculous cap space to make that happen. And what was Trey? I think Lyles was making something like 5, and Jackson was another 5. So if you do end up paying Bagley 10, that's like what you were paying for those guys anyway.
Right. Wow.
And I think
that's a net zero.
That's massive.
I think another point to Rod's point about Troy and being patient, I think a lot of the pressure you heard towards the trade deadline was trade Jeremy Grant. Where's Jeremy Grant going? And then he keeps him. And watch, I'll tell you this, in the offseason, watch him get a deal done. And everyone will sit there and be like, wow, what a deal.
People.
And the same people that were on Pistons Twitter months ago going, get Jeremy Grant out of here. And now watch, he's going to flip into something.
I've been telling people.
Step ahead.
And it's crazy to see the narrative shift. It's so crazy. And Rod, it's honestly just listening. You told me this. I asked you, what's one of the things you can give me? What's a pointer? I said, listen, they tell you exactly what they're thinking, what they're going to do. And then listen to them say, we like Jeremy Grant. We have personal connections with Jeremy Grant. If we trade him, we're going to make sure it's something that's beneficial for everyone involved. Right. But we're not rushing to trade him. We have a high price on him because we value him. Then everyone said, why didn't we trade him at least for 1 draft pick? Well, because Troy Weaver is not a liar. He said 2 draft picks, at least for right now. Going into the draft, when you can select, when you know what the draft pick is, I'll give him up for 1 pick if it's the right one. But what if you give me 2 picks and both of those convey to like bottom 20 of the first round in back-to-back years?
Wait till lottery.
Yeah, like I'm not going to sit here and just give up Jeremy Grant just because you just want him gone. Like that stuff is crazy. And then right after that, Jeremy Grant went and was like the main reason why we won 2 or 3 games. Right. Buckets. That Boston game.
But even more so, for the same reason that free agency is going to be a little nutty and somebody's going to have to reach to get a guy because they didn't have the season they thought and they need to make some kind of big addition, they're going to give you more for Grant in the offseason than they were at the deadline. And I think we had talked to Troy and said, well, what was the thing about Grant or essentially why didn't he get traded? I think this was in one of the press conferences, and it was like, because we didn't need to. None of the offers that we got were good enough and what we were asking. So we're not going to panic and say that we've got to get, like you said, we have to get rid of him. We'll just wait. and people will come to us with what we were asking in the first place. It's not like Jeremy's this cancer and and you can't stand him in the locker room. He's an excellent locker room guy. They like being around him. So you don't have to do anything crazy because the public pressure is there or people want Jeremy Grant out of here. If you keep Jeremy Grant, it's wonderful. If you trade Jeremy Grant because a team gives you what you think his value is, or maybe a little bit more, that's more wonderful. And he gets to go to a place that he wants to go. I think they're doing an excellent job in the front office in terms of setting a culture, bringing guys in, and saying what this franchise, the face of this franchise is going to be, and the culture of this franchise is going to be. They're doing a wonderful job in the 2 years that they've been here.
Wonderful job. Man, guys, look, let's get into this chase down. I know we were going to talk a little Saddiq Bey, but I think we made the arc to Jaylen Brown. That's where I want to kind of see him get as a player. Jaylen Brown, somewhere between Jaylen Brown and Devin Booker, and just be that absolute on attack, that consistent pit bull, straight up. But I want to get right into these last couple things. Just our second player of the week, the NBA playoffs. How have you guys felt about it?
I think Jason Tatum is emerging into a superstar before our eyes. I think that's the biggest thing I've took from it. I mean, if you go into a playoff series, and I don't care if it's the Nets and how, everyone likes to make fun of the Nets, Steve Nash, and I get it, Kyrie Irving. If you go and you have to guard Kevin Durant, and not only you're blocking his jumper, you're being physical. He even talked about it in the postgame. He's like, this is, which I thought in a way it was kind of like his way of asking for a way out. But he was like, this is the toughest defense I've ever faced physically. It's not about what they do. It's how they do it, the personnel. And I think Jason Tatum is a big reason, man. Like offensively, he outplayed Kevin Durant. That's the series that stuck out to me. They swept the Brooklyn Nets, and give credit to the Celtics because they look like serious contenders. But Jason Tatum is probably what I took from this playoffs, and the Warriors and how scary they look. But I think Jason Tatum's emerging right in front of our very own eyes. It's honestly, it's great to see. I've never seen, you don't see a whole lot of guys emerge in front of you or have that moment. And people forget Jason Tatum. The Boston Celtics have been to the Eastern Conference Finals, 3 out of the last 4 years or something like that. They've been close. They just haven't gotten over the top. And I think this might be the year. Yep. Jason Tatum.
And I'm glad to see them put faith in their guys and let their guys work through it. I remember there were times maybe a few years ago when they were talking about, hey, is it time to break those two up? Now we're sitting here looking at these guys now, that patience, that ability to look at the league and say, you know what, let's trajectorize this thing a little bit and to just let these guys figure this thing out.
Right. They brought in more vets too.
Solid. Yeah, they're looking solid, man. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're looking solid. I think that's a team. I was really intrigued by the Nets coming into the playoffs.
Me too.
But they just didn't have enough. They just couldn't pull enough together. It was awesome to see them make this push at the end of the season. I want to see KD, what he does this offseason as it relates to working, coming back, and playing tough. But the Warriors, yeah, I'm hoping as it relates to the type of restoration that we can have something long-term that's similar to theirs. Whether we're winning, whether we're losing, we know that the front office is making the right decisions.
Built through that draft, baby.
Right. And that every single game that's played, you can see progress in these players, in this foundation. So those are two great teams that you brought up, man. And the players, for me, it's just been Jaylen Brown. I've just been impressed. I've been beyond impressed. I'm really hoping, like I said, Saddiq Bey can take these types of leaps, man, and that confidence factor, just really, really go out there and know I'm that dog, and I don't really have to bark at you, but
Right.
What about you, Rod?
I agree on the Celtics, and I said that one of my favorite players when he's on and hitting shots is Jason Tatum, because it's just, what do you do with that dude? How do you guard that dude when he's on? It's just nothing. But the other team that I watch is I like what Memphis is doing, and this is the reason that I didn't want the Lakers in the playoffs. Or I'm not upset that the Lakers aren't in the playoffs, because I want there to be that focus on what the Grizzlies are doing, and it's that's the arc that the Pistons are eventually going to be on. You draft properly, you get your star, and you add to it each year. You take a very patient approach to it, and you don't try to shortcut the process in getting good. And the Grizzlies did exactly that. So I'm happy for them. I like watching them because it's young guys. They don't have that grizzled vet in the middle that's helping them get there. These are just young guys that all figured it out together.
That's a good point. And as the Pistons are moving forward, we know that they have some big decisions to make And we'll make this our last word about vets and about what they consider to be vets. I know that they look at Jeremy Grant as kind of like one of those young leader vets. And I know that Cade Cunningham moving forward is somebody that they can probably look at that as well. Are the Pistons in a position to move forward without having to do those traditional signings we've seen them do in the past with our Tollivers, our Corey Josephs, among recruiters? Are they beyond that? Can they be like Memphis? And this will be our last word.
I don't think it's. I think people get too wrapped up. Like, I think every team needs a Roddy McGruder. Every team needs those guys, like, to keep everybody. Look at the Boston Celtics, Al Horford. Like, they brought Al back, and look how things changed over in Boston. I think a lot of it has to do. You need a guy, and everyone, obviously, Dwayne Casey, hell of a head coach, but you need a guy on the bench, like a player, to be like, guys, relax. Like, we're fine. You know, everyone, if the people are fighting, whatever's going on, a team's going on a run, or you can't buy a shot to save your life.
Yep.
I think every team does need that guy. And I think Memphis. And even Minnesota, they have Patrick Beverley. I think he was a big reason for why they kind of turned the tide and became better. So I would say, I think people think too much into it. Like, I get it. You want a team of young guys, but even Troy mentioned it. You can't have a team of all young guys because you need a guy that can kind of just keep the temperature down. So I would say no. I think you need a vet on your team.
Yeah, I mean, look what it's done for Cat. For real, a guy that we know has all-world talent, but as it relates to that leadership department and being loud and being super vocal, and being that guy that other players, defenders, and all that are going to respect when that type of stuff comes forth. I think Patrick Beverley just came in and kind of just stamps him automatically, gives him that, and he doesn't really have to. He can just go out there and play ball. I'm fine with the veteran players. I trust what these guys are seeing. I've seen how Corey Joseph interacts with them. It was awesome being at the Grand Classic. They love this dude. He's funny. He jokes around. He's cool. Like, I like him.
And Rod, I got to mention, James brought this up and how he actually mentioned you as well. If we met Corey, we'd love him.
Yeah. He said that.
Like, he brought the same thing up. He said, if you guys met Corey, you'd love him.
He's just a funny dude. I don't know if I shared this story when we were after practicing. He was doing his 3-point stuff, and something happened, and I just jumped in and said, "Give me a 3." So he throws the ball over, and I catch it. I'm like, okay. And so I shoot, and it's an air ball because I haven't warmed up or done anything. Like, it's an NBA 3, legit NBA 3 from the corner.
Right.
Airballed it, and so said, no, give me a mulligan. So I shot another one and hit the rim, miss. But he's like, yeah, you can't ask any more questions. You get the whatever. So I told James to go over. James goes over. He shoots an air ball. He shoots a second air ball. And Corey's like, no, get off the court. You can't do anything. So Omari comes over. Omari Sankofa comes over, and he's probably the third best basketball player of the three of us. One shot, 3, hits it. So Corey's like, you get to ask the first question, and James, you can't ask a question. You ask the last question. So everybody else gets to ask after, or you ask after everybody else. So Lauren and Keith, everybody else gets that. But that's how he is. He's that way with us. It's not a front. It's nothing else. He's a good guy to be around. And I think that's why Casey likes him, is that he brings that level-headedness to the huddle and to the locker room and everything else.
Man, that's cool.
Every team needs
that. It's a great perspective, too. And the best thing we could say is whatever you call him, whether it's Grim, Weaver, or Troy Reaper, it doesn't matter. Trust him.
Yeah.
Trust him. If Casey's comfortable with a veteran on the bench, trust him, man, because you see them trying to do a little bit more, too, as relates to, like, featuring their young guys, as relates to analytics. You know, hey, trust these guys' decisions. What are you going to say, Rod?
Yep. No. That was it. I think you need a veteran. You need a Magruder, an Olenek, or somebody like that. But if you're going to start making that big shift to being a contending type team and a playoff team, then the roster just won't allow you to have too many of them. But just in this building stage where they are right now, I think they did a good job of surrounding the young guys with some veteran presence.
That's what's up. Well, look, guys, this was fun. I think this was a good one. And for competitive dance battles, see you next time. No,
Rod, you're up next.
Not the kid.
He goes, I'm good.
Stay tuned for competitive dance battles by Rod next. No, hey, look, man, for Woodward Pistons, this was fun. Hey, my name is Brandon Detroit Kool-Aid. I was joined again by
Jeff, your boy Jeff. Follow me on Twitter, by the way. You got the ad on the bottom.
Yep. Hey, Morning Woodward Show alum. Hey, does almost everything here at the Woodward Morning, at Woodward Sports, man. Yeah, I love what he contributes. And as always, let's get that drum roll going. Hey,
He goes,
legend, Rod Beard.
Love you, Rod.
Hey, man. Hey,
All right.
this was fun.